are back, and I want to turn now to the Senate race, the U.S. Senate race between Rick Scott and Bill Nelson. That's going to be the driver this time around. In 2010, when Scott ran, the governor's race was where all the money got spent. Now it's going to be in the Senate race, and Adam Putnam and his $20 million, $25 million, $30 million, whatever he gets to in this race. It's going to pale in comparison to what's spent in the Senate race. How does the Senate race? How do those dollars impact down ballot races? Does the turnout there going to be a coattail situation?
Well, ironically, Brian, I don't think that U.S. Senate races have what you would call a coattail effect. I do think gubernatorial races do, right? Your executive branches, but the congressional races and the U.S. Senate races tend to be judged by the voters somewhat separately from the rest of the
national issues, state issues.
That's right. Exactly. People generally don't elect someone to the U.S. Senate because they see the U.S. Senate as a big jobs creation engine in the state. They will, as in Rick Scott's re-election, they'll give you credit for jobs that have been created when you're either a governor or running for governor. So the reality is, it's going to be a tough race. It's going to be a national race, is what it's going to come down to. It's really going to be more of a race between Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer is what's going to happen. And this is going to be a referendum on Senate leadership going into the next 6 to 12 years.
Okay, that's going to be fun to watch. Now, you don't think that if there's $100 million on the Republican side, that doesn't have it's going to have some impact on down ballot, maybe statewide stuff, even legislative races.
It will have some impact. There's no doubt about that. It will have
the vote.
Yeah, it will have impact, particularly if you have the president. And then you have Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton coming down to campaign for Nelson, right? Mm-hmm. It will have impact on the overall turnout, but I think you will see a lot of ticket splitters this election cycle.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's right.
Kevin.
Brian.
Let's talk a little bit about the money being spent on the Democrat side. Now, Glenn Graham's not going to pump a lot of money in, primary-wise, not comparatively speaking. What's the winning amount of money for the governor's race on the Democrat side?
I think it's less about money on the Democratic side.
Of course not. It's never about money. It's all about
you have an electorate,
and
Brett can back this up. The Democratic primary electorate is much smaller than a Republican primary electorate in off-cycle years, and we may get 1.2, 1.3, or 4 million voters in our Democratic primary. So when you're looking at that electorate, TV spending, which Philip Levine, one of the candidates for governor, has spent close to $5 million already, and he's polling around 7%.
That's not going to get him there.
Well, it just shows you a little bit of the changing environment in primaries in general, but we do have a history in 2010 of a very wealthy South Florida candidate spending tens and tens of millions of dollars against a candidate without tens and tens of million dollars. That's Jeff Green.
I love how you're always switched on.
Versus Kendrick Meek. And we saw how that turned out in that primary. So money isn't everything on the Democratic side.
So
or life, Brian.
Or life. It's not. Says you. So let's just recap here. I want to get.
Yeah, I want to speak to something about the turnout.
Oh, you go right ahead.
Yeah. Okay. If you don't mind, I'll just say this. Look, gubernatorial races. I want to get back to the point I made earlier. They tend to get in the voter's psyche related to their pocketbook, right? Mm-hmm. They do. I think that people who are voting, even in primary audiences for congressional races, whether it be U.S. Senate races or congressional races back home, they tend to be driven by people who will make up their minds in the last 2 to 3 weeks of the election, right? So in a governor's race, you might actually see some hardening of the electorate, even in a primary, maybe about a month and a half, 2 months out, when people kind of get gravitated toward their champion, because everyone has an opinion about who their executive is going to be. But when it comes to Congress, let's face it, Democrats and Republicans in their bases believe that Congress is broken, right? So from that standpoint, I just think people are kind of more inclined to wait till the last possible minute to make up that mind.
And that's why you're predicting ticket switching and ticket splitting.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a completely different rationale that people use to make up their minds.
I want to turn now and ask these guys for predictions. So let's start with U.S. Senate general election predictions. Mm-hmm. Which means you're going to have to go ahead and make a primary prediction when we get to the governor's race.
Yeah.
We'll skip the Democrat primary for you.
I'm looking forward to his prediction.
Yeah. So general election. So you want me to do the Senate general as well as the?
You can talk. We can do. Let's start with Senate. I mean, we know Senate. Yeah. We already know that it's probably going to be Rick Scott. We don't know of anybody really running that can challenge what he's got going on.
Yeah. So on the general election side, look, it's going to be hard for me to make a prediction today. What I will say is my prediction is it's going to be a very, very tough race.
That is gutless. You have to make a prediction. I demand it.
Well, look, I will give the odds to Rick Scott, okay? I will give the odds to Rick Scott because Bill Nelson has just had too much plastic surgery. However, with that being said, I think that this is a race that could be determined by, once again, it'll be a Rick Scott special, less than a point and a half.
Yeah, he doesn't have blowouts, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Heart attack.
Yeah.
On election night. Kevin,
Yeah.
I know you're going to. What do you have for Senate?
Well, I'm focused right now on the gubernatorial primary, and I don't want to make any predictions in the Senate
Unacceptable.
In the Senate race.
Come on.
I certainly predict that the Donald Trump factor will be a factor, and one way or the other. Either he plays a basketball game with Kim Jong-un and solves world hunger.
As long as he's got Rodman on his team.
Then
Who does Rodman play for?
Then maybe Republicans will have a chance. But other than that, the disaster, the just unbelievable incompetence of the Trump administration will flow down to the great state of Florida, and the Sunshine State's next U.S. senator, I believe, will continue to be Bill Nelson.
Okay, but he's in the race of his life, you'd say.
I think every race is the race of your
Oh
life.
yeah,
You got to run.
But you look back, he's never spent anything close to what he needs to spend this time around. I don't even know if his team knows how to manage that level of money.
Well, he's run against some colorful characters. Connie
Fair.
Mack the fourth. Is it fourth?
That's right.
Fourth, fifth,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Who got beat up by Ron Gant of the Atlanta Braves, and then Catherine Harris, who got beat up by her own lack of competence.
So let's go. Let's switch to governor's race real quick. You want to take a flyer on the primary on the Republican side, Brett?
Yes, I mean, look, on the primary side, I would still say that it's Adam Putnam to lose. He's built the broadest network statewide, but it's a race that has many changing dynamics. And I will say this about the not only for the gubernatorial primary, but the rest of the down ballot. I'm not convinced that the races are closed out yet. There's still a lot of rumblings about people looking at these races. So I'm going to give it to about mid-April, and then I'll tell you with a little bit more certainty what my prediction is.
I love it.
He's just trying to get back on the show.
I love it. No,
Yeah.
he'll be back on. I have a feeling around mid-April he'll be back on the show. So tell me more. What do you think?
Well, in the Democratic primary?
Yeah.
I mean, Gillum.
How big? How big of a margin?
I think it might be relatively close.
Because I'm going to play this clip over and over
You've got a
again.
lot of-
Whether you're right or wrong, it's going to get played over and over again.
You've got, that's just for your own entertainment, though.
And Facebook's.
The primary will be close.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that the energy that's on the ground for Gillum right now he will win.
I can feel the. Do you feel the energy for Gillum? I feel it. When you walk outside here in Tallahassee, I just feel the
there's
energy on the
defense
street.
lawyers lining up across the state to try to help him out right now. So yeah, he's in
Right
great shape.
after they finish with Roy Moore.
Oh, I love it. And that's the clip right there. We'll cut it
there you
right
go.
there. This is the end of season one, and we'll be back in a minute to close it out. But thanks for being on the show. I appreciate both of you coming on.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll be
you,
right
Brett.
back after this.